bench. At the bench. We still need our segues.
Opening music. Yeah.
Yeah, come on,
Well,
people.
obviously nobody's watching this shit if
Yeah,
nobody's sent
that's
us
all
in an
right. We
opening
like
song.
each other.
Yeah, we'll just talk to each other, bro.
Yeah. 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 It's like the music business. In so many ways, you cannot have a huge ego.
No, no one will allow you to have a huge
Well, it's
ego.
not even that. It's like you have been humbled and humbled and humbled and humbled.
You have no idea.
I have some idea, but we each have our story.
Yes.
How was your weeks
Well, yeah, that's we didn't do last week because I was off.
on termite land?
Yeah, I just bought this house and had it inspected. No bugs, no nothing. And then last Friday, half an hour before we're supposed to do this, the basement is full of flying bugs, and it was a swarm. And I was told that it's a mature colony, been here for about 5 years, and once it matures, and then they swarm and try to build new colonies and whatever. And so thankfully the swarmers they don't eat anything. The soldiers are doing their work, but it's localized to just a very small area. There's probably a pretty good nest outside, and so it's gonna cost me basically $2,000, and they're gonna come and take care of it.
Welcome.
I was concerned. I'm like, Christ, I don't want them getting in here and eating all my guitars, but they said,
Yeah.
no, that won't happen.
Yeah, welcome to
So,
home ownership. I'm sorry.
yeah. Yeah. It passes an inspection, no bugs. Literally a couple weeks after I buy it, boom. Hey, guess what? $2,000.
Yeah.
So,
No.
there goes shrubs.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh well.
Your weeks have been really exciting. Yeah. Okay, so we have Slaughter to talk about. We have Danish drum, more Danish drum to talk about. I think this should be a Danish drum show because
We can talk about Dana.
yeah,
Dana would love it if we talked about Dana.
yeah, yes. So, but
Dana's really good people. I gotta say, a lot of the famous people that I meet are so full of themselves. And here's a guy who has every right to be an arrogant prick, and he's just the nicest guy, man. He's just Jeff Blando, the guitar player in Slaughter, and we just call Dana Dad. We just he's like our dad.
Yeah.
And we're like the insolent children that don't behave.
Yeah. So, how was the Blando guitar?
The Blando guitar went over well. I put on my media. I drove out to above Pittsburgh, a place called Jurgles, Jergel ''S, Jurgles. It's like a mini Hammerjacks. It's a really cool club. Really cool club. Great staff. Mm-hmm. Right across the parking lot is a motorcycle shop. They do Triumph and Indian, which is cool. No Harley, right. So they're not that cool. But so I went in. I'm like, I've got a 1967 Triumph. I went in. I'll get a Triumph T-shirt. No, they don't have any Triumph T-shirts. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, okay. So I bought Sarah an Indian T-shirt because Sarah's cool. But
he's all right.
So I got the Jeff's guitar out, and I got there. They had already set up the backline and everything, and they were sounding out the PA. And so I give Jeff his guitar, and he was thrilled. And he went and plugged it in, and it just absolutely ripped. And he was thrilled. And Dana is going to work the bass back in. I gave him the bass, and he was really, really happy with the work. Everybody gathered around, and but he had already set up the bass he was going to use for that show, which is this Thunderbird that a guy had built for him. And so essentially that was all done. And I understand that. And so he'll be working at it. And so we will have photographs and video of him using the bass.
So the bass back in the day was an arbor? Is that what it was called?
No, this actually one of the arbors is on its way here now for me to fix. There were 4 or 5 arbors made, and he has 3 of them. And he used those. And then Washburn USA talked to him about an endorsement deal, I guess, and they cloned one of they cloned the skull arbor. Okay. And down to the wear and everything. That's the one that I repaired. And Um, and but it was a different animal, and the other arbors are very consistent. And then Robin made him one as well with a reverse headstock. I think that's in the Fly the Eagles video.
Okay.
Um,
Robin guitars.
Robin guitars out of
Okay.
Houston, Texas.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Tim Kelly, the guitar player in Slaughter, had a
Yeah.
Robin deal,
Yeah.
and what a great guy he was. Boy, I wish I would have met him, because the stories are just nuts. This guy would be a fun guy to hang out with, man.
All right.
Unfortunately, passed away in a car accident, and so that's where Blando came in. But
How long has Blando been with him?
I can't answer that question, but
Okay.
for quite a while.
Okay.
So Blanda goes up, plugs in to his Marshalls, proceeds to just absolutely shred everybody there, all the crew, the staff, everybody just stands there with their mouths open, like, wow. Blanda looks at me and he goes, and I was like, yes. So he used the guitar the whole show,
All right.
did not take it off.
That's Excalibur.
Yeah, well, it's just, I mean, it's him. If you Google Jeff Blando, it's the guitar he's holding in almost every photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And Gibson really screwed it up, and so I unscrewed
That
it.
says a lot for you.
And
That says a lot about you, buddy. Seriously.
ah,
No,
right,
don't even go there.
right,
There's
right
a
place,
time for
right time.
humility. There's a time for humility, but it's like just go like this. All right, it's all right.
Well, I did a good job, but
It's good. It's all right.
anybody could have done a good job.
I could not have done a good job.
All right, anybody reasonable could have done a good job. But
don't want me touching your guitar.
So yeah, if you go to my Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
Greg Platzer Guitars. I don't think I put pictures on Facebook. I need to.
Mm-hmm.
But on Instagram, I put up pictures from the show.
Right.
And I got to tell you, there's a lot of 80s bands out there that are just hammering away at it, and it's really sad.
Yeah.
And like there's a few bands, like Skid Row is still very vibrant. But a lot of the 80s bands, you go and it's just nostalgia. It's there's nothing new. Slaughter is a killer band, and Mark Slaughter is an amazingly good guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
And he picks up the guitar for 3 or 4 songs. He does a little solo, and everybody goes, "Holy shit!" But mainly he just
that was his thing before he became a rock star.
He was a guitar teacher.
Yeah,
and he's brilliant. But I have a lot of respect for him because he doesn't need to make it happen. I mean, Jeff Blando is such a great guitar player. He fills it all out.
Mm-hmm.
They sound really terrific the way they're set up, and the drummer they have, Will, is just brilliant. I mean, did I use brilliant too many times? But anyway, really great band.
They got a good setup.
Yeah.
Silly question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Slaughter comes to near Pittsburgh, wherever I forget the name.
Warrendale.
They come to Warrendale. You say Backline. In other words, when they travel, they said these are the amps that we want.
No, they bring their amps.
Okay.
Yeah, what they do, and same thing with Get the Lead Out from last night. We'll talk about that. Backline is essentially guitar amps, drums, bass amps,
Mm-hmm.
And then they contract. Their rider specifies, like typically, like I think what they do is they give the venue a rider, and this is how much PA we need, how much lighting we need. We need so many towels in the dressing room, and like bottles of sparkling water and pizza afterwards and stuff. And so it's fairly common for a lot of bands nowadays to use locals as they go around. I know when bands come into Harrisburg and play XL or HMAC, they use house sound, so, but if it's outdoor shows, I think, stadium tours, you bring your own PA, but club tours, you pretty much use the house PA. The cool thing now is almost everybody uses in-ears, so monitors and stuff like that aren't really a problem anymore. So monitor squawk, and you don't need a great monitor guy if your front of house guy knows what he's doing. And so technology has made that a lot easier. But no, they had their own amps and stuff. So Jeff's using the same rig.
Is that
Well,
is that the rule, or
when
is
I
it changed from people?
when I was with the New York Dolls, when we went to Miami, we just had SIR, studio instrument rentals. We would just, our management would just say, we need 5 JCM 800 heads, 6 JCM 800 cabinets, 2 SVTs, you know, and with Brian Delaney, the drummer, it was like a Tiamat Art Star or Pearl, whatever, Premiere or whatever drum kit. And um uh so yeah, and we would fly in. So basically we'd have the guitars in gig bags. I'd carry all these guitars onto the plane, stuff the overhead bins with them. Um but then when you do a bus tour, like last night, Get the Let Out was at the Eichelberger in Hanover, and they have their bus, and then they have a trailer behind it, and they've got all the backline and a lot of their own lighting stuff they bring because they have a very particular light show.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but it really depends. A lot of baby bands tour in a Ford Econoline, and they just, a couple of half stacks and a drum kit and whatever, and then you're totally dependent on whatever the venue has for sound and lights and personnel. And then you get to the mid-level and you're bringing all your own crew and as much gear as you think you need. And I kind of like the way Slaughter and Get the Let Out are doing it, because with Slaughter, they're flying, the guys are flying, but the crew drives. So they've got a motorhome with a trailer, and the shows are usually 2 days apart, uh, unless they're at a venue for 2 days in a row. And so, um, the band members are always in an airport somewhere, but the gear just goes on the schedule around, and band members can walk in, everything's all set up. And you
Okay.
just plug in, play, and then go to the dressing room. And I want to raise a point right now. So many people, they'll say, "Hey, Greg, can you get me backstage?" Let me tell you something. Backstage has changed. In the 80s, late 80s, backstage was a circus. You saw all the videos and everything like that. And there would be all manner of tomfoolery going on backstage.
Mhm.
Nowadays, backstage is a bunch of old men looking at their phones. That's all it is.
Yeah,
There's no,
I just watched a video of Lars from Metallica. Says backstage is people giving us we're doing workouts,
yeah,
giving us
yeah, it's nothing
massages or
backstage.
whatever, so we can do our job.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not the whiskey.
it's so boring. It's wonderful
Yeah,
to be backstage because all the chaos is everywhere else. And like with Slaughter, once sound check was done, everybody went back to the hotel and took naps and took showers and everything like that, and then met back at the venue and transported back and forth from the hotel. And we just went backstage and we sit there and we talk about redecorating our kitchens, and like, oh, I found a guy to do my lawn. Oh, that was, dude, how did you do that? It is so different from the way it was 30 years ago. I mean, literally, I saw things happen backstage in the late 80s that I wish I could forget. And now, backstage is just literally, it's just, this is backstage. Get it? That's it.
yeah.
But um yeah, shows have changed so much.
I met Obituary backstage once, and
Is that a band?
yeah, they were.
Okay.
It was cool.
Yeah,
I like them because of them. Their music was different to me, but they were cool dudes. They're
that's cool.
completely cool dudes. So it's like that was and they were not. They didn't have their big head. They didn't have big heads, and they weren't. Um, yeah, it was. That's one of the scary things. Like somebody like Ace Frehley. The reason I play guitar is because of Ace Frehley. If you go and meet your
Me
mentor,
too.
it,
You got to be careful when you meet your idols.
that's a scary thing.
Yeah, Ace is a terrific guy. Let me make that. There we go. Um, Ace is a terrific guy, but like the meet and greet with Ace is business.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
have the $500, so
yeah, a lot of the meet and greets are kind of weird. With
yeah, that's how they
Slaughter,
make their money now.
yeah, with Slaughter backstage, there was like a bunch of family members and this and that, whatever. It came into the dressing room, and which is a large, comfortable room. I can't say enough positive about Jurgles. It was really a neat place,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of fun stuff. And actually, Peter Chris's assistant was there, and we were hanging out with him, and great guy. And but it was like a little bit of madhouse when everybody was doing the meet and greet pictures and all that stuff and everything. But the cool thing about them is everybody talks. You don't get like I've seen some meet and greets with famous bands where you line up, you're shuffled in, they do the picture, and then you say, "Hey, I'm a big fan." Well, that's great. Thank you so much. Out you go. And I really I understand why people want to do that because they get to shake hands or put their arm around their hero and stuff like that, and it's worth the money to them and stuff. But I stand there and I watch it just grind on the artist, and nobody seems to be having a good time except the fans, but that's what it's all about. Honestly, I've seen a lot of artists bitch and moan about this and that, whatever, but they're losing sight of the important thing is if the fans are having a good time, it's good business. Because if you don't have people in your audience, you
If
don't
you're not
matter.
a people person, you probably shouldn't be performing.
Yeah, you don't matter if you can't draw. And for years, I've been telling people support live music before it's gone. And live music is disappearing. And everybody out there, go see a damn band.
Mhm.
Make the venue know that having a band there is a worthwhile investment. Let the band know that you care about them, and you might actually have a great time and meet some cool people. And um, I grew up I'm 58. So, when I was a kid in the 70s, that was the pinnacle of rock starism. And, you know, Jets and, glam and all that stuff. And there was still mystery about the artist.
Mhm.
And, it was a different time. You didn't have these damn things. So essentially, if you wanted entertainment, you went to a sports event, you went to a rock show or whatever. Well, sports events are drawing better than ever, and rock shows are not. And as a result, musicians are having to find other sources of income, and we're losing really good musicians to they're just leaving. They're retiring and they're going off and doing investment banking or crap like
So a
that.
lot of these bands you're talking about, like um, aren't aren't doing as well. In other words, we see all the things like okay, um, Journey. You see the Journey when they got back on the road, and it's like they're selling out stadiums, but that's not across the board.
No, no.
No, a lot of the guys that were once stadium rockers are now playing clubs or
Well,
theater.
and I'll say this, and not to you know rave about Slaughter anymore, but I mean this is a former huge band,
Hmm.
and they're playing to a club to 1,000 people, 1,200 people, whatever it was, and every one of those people had a great time because I was up on the upper level watching, and I watch the crowd, I don't watch the band, I watch the crowd. I want to see who's having a good time, who's not, whatever. Thread is you want to make sure nobody's got a gun, but everybody was having a great time, and the band members they're interacting with people. I can't stand shoegaze bands. Oh my god, I hate it when you go see a band and they just stand there and they just like I'll stay home in my underwear, eat Doritos, and listen to the record.
The
And
Eagles in 1974.
the Equals anytime,
Yeah,
and it, I
I just saw a
changing
video of them.
guitars after every song. Really, I saw Judas Priest a few years ago.
Yeah,
And I'll be damned if Rob didn't change his big leather jacket after every song. They'd get this great momentum going. Everybody's like, song would end, and then we all stand around while he changes,
the jacket.
and whatever, and then out he comes, and then and then and it was kind of like driving and your sister's learning how to drive the car, and you're like,
Losing
And
momentum, yes.
yeah, you gotta have momentum. You gotta, just entertain the damn people. All
Yeah.
right. And oops, I forgot to turn my phone off. And but hey, you know what? Let's talk about last night. Let's talk about Get the Let Out.
Get the Let Out is
They are the most amazing Led Zeppelin tribute band
Mhm.
you've ever seen in your life. They don't try to look like Zepp. They definitely look like a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
Great light show, all the right gear. I mean, they have all the right gear to sound just like Zeppelin. Um, and they've analyzed it down to the nth degree. So you've got Paul Sinclair on vocals, who basically sounds just like Robert Plant. Doesn't look like him, sounds like him. Paul Hammond on guitars, doing most of the Jimmy Page parts, and Tommy Zampanelli on guitar. Um, and they're doing the guitar and electric and acoustic and mandolin stuff and everything. And then Eddie Kurek, who does guitar and keyboards, and Phil D'Agostino on bass, and Adam on drums. And you'd swear this guy's John Bonham. I mean, he plays
Yeah.
just like John Bonham, the greatest drummer of all.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. John Bonham, greatest rock drummer of all time. Nobody else would even matter if John Bonham hadn't first sat down at a kit. And that's not even open for discussion. So
Mhm.
just keep it to yourself, because John Bonham was the greatest rock and roll drummer. He could play with any band and make them sound good. Neil Peart could not play with Cheap Trick, kids. Keith Moon could certainly not play with Aerosmith, but John Bonham could play with any one of those bands and make it happen. So
Mhm.
I'm just gonna say that's
Yeah.
the truth. But anyway, so these guys have analyzed the music down to the nth degree. And so Jimmy Page layered a bunch of guitars. So you got 3 guitars at times, changing guitars, not to be fashionable, but because some parts are recorded with a Tele, some were recorded with a Les Paul, whatever. So they're
And electro.
literally, yeah, they've got it. Yeah, the Hagstrom 12-string bass, the Gibson 612, double neck, whatever. It's just, they're amazing, and they're all really great guys. And I've been friends with these guys for a very long time. And so Sarah and I have artist passes, so we can go wherever we want with these guys. And in fact, I went to help to tech. Their long-term guitar tech Dan left, and they have a temporary guy named Tom. And Paul Hammond called me, and I was going to go to the show anyway and hang out. And he said, can you just oversee? And I was like, yeah, sure. Tom did a great job. So they're in Allentown on Saturday,
Okay.
and I'm gonna go to that. Um, and I brought a bunch of my cool guitars for the guys to play and everything. And they're a great band. They own their own bus. They don't rent the bus.
Mhm.
They own all their PA. They own everything they can own. These guys have played Red Rock 7 times. Every year they do a West Coast swing, and they draw
You're
at
supposed
Red
to
Rock.
think of it like the Led Zeppelin endorsement.
Yeah, Jimmy Page
Okay.
is on board. And
Okay.
um
Treating it like like it's classical music, like it
yeah,
doing it justice.
this
We're
is
not trying to put our own
absolutely,
spin on Led Zeppelin.
no, it's 100% respectful, and they deliver the goods. The band is having a great time. Play the Wanton song for the 7,000th time and deliver it like it's the most important one. And I can't say that for a lot of bands that I know, but these guys, every night they put it all out there. And last night there was a weird thing. There must have been a voltage spike, and all the automatic lights, the gobos that rotate and everything like that, they're all dead. So all they had was a few static lights. So House, the lighting guy, he set up some great scenes and stuff like that, but the audience didn't notice. They didn't have the light tricks. They still had a great time.
Yeah.
And an unusual thing that happened is usually a roadie before the encore will go out and stoke the band up. Well, last night I got roped into that job. So I had to walk out in front of a packed house and stand there with just a microphone, no guitar to protect me from them,
Mhm.
and stoke them up. And I don't get scared a lot. Man, I was terrified. was scared, man. So I went out. I was like, "Hey!"
That's a hype guy.
Well, it was cool. It was cool.
Yeah.
Though. I mean, I was like, "Hey, you having a good time?" They're like, "Ah." I was like, "You came here to rock," and they said, "I said you didn't come here to clip coupons." They said, "Oh," and I'm like, "Where did that come from?" You know. But I hyped them up, and we had a great time. And I went back. I'm like, "Oh, I'm glad I'm done with that." They're like, "Oh, that was cool, dude." So I'm gonna do that again tomorrow night in Allentown.
Right.
But and that's the
Where
last
are they
time.
from?
They're from Philly area.
Okay, because didn't they have Brittany Fox's bass player at one time?
Yeah. The second bass player was Billy Childs from Brittany Fox, and back in that day, um, they weren't all that accurate, but they were good. The two Pauls, Paul Sinclair, the singer, and Paul Hammond, the guitar player, they had a band called Sinclair that literally, they were shot by all kinds of labels. Paul was telling me last night, and like Skid Row got pulled instead of them, from one label, and all this other stuff, and um, so they started doing the Led Zeppelin thing, and then as time has gone by, they've just added. Um, every time they've added a new. When Billy left and Phil D'Agostino joined, Phil is an amazingly talented musician and very very particular about how the bass lines are done, just like John Paul Jones. And they got to the point when Phil got in, and it really started going towards exact. And they had a great guitar player named Jimmy, who did an amazing job. But this guy Tommy Zampanelli that just joined up is mind blowing. And Eddie Kurek, the kid, he's just a punk kid, and he's amazing keyboard player, amazing guitar player. Can do all the Robin Plant vocals. And last night, at the very end, a whole lot of love. Adam walks off the drums. Eddie sits down at the drums, and he played out the very end. And I got video of it. I'll put it up.
This is the keyboard player.
The guitar / keyboard / background vocalist / holy shit drummer.
Drums.
I mean, this guy's a one-man army.
Right.
And
that's the next generation. That's a next generation thing that I'm happy to see. I'm happy.
Yeah. It's nice to see people in their 20s that still care about
guitar, play bass, play keyboards, play drums well enough that you can do it convincingly.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Rod, when you and I were kids, because we're in our 90s,
right?
And when we were kids, there were bands in every garage of our neighborhood, and nowadays, kids are doing dumb shit like playing video games and stuff. They're not learning how to play musical instruments. So when you find somebody that's into it, there's so many tools available. If you want to play guitar, you've got YouTube, you've got all this. There's just everything is designed to help you, and yet kids are not doing it. They want to play video games and kill people and stuff like that. And
I think, I'm gonna jump off the boomer. I think we're gonna have a renaissance.
I hope so.
Yeah,
because it's a cycle. It's a cycle, and like right now, the whole retail experience. We talked about that in a previous show, and whatever, and things ebb and they flow, and popular music has been ignoring guitars for quite a while. And you want to hear loud distorted guitar, you go to country. Sarah Sheriff, my girlfriend, plays in a Grant Bryan band, and she backs a singer named Jillian Smith. But Jillian, it's all acoustic, and with Grant, she's rocking out. I mean,
kicking it.
Her Kemper's got more distorted settings in it than mine does, and she's up there just ripping and some real shred guitar tones and stuff, and it's so cool. So at some point, like, I don't know. Let's talk about stuff that's real.
Okay, here's one last question about Get the Lead Out. Auxiliary, you said the keyboard player plays drums, plays guitar, who does the mandolin stuff?
The mandolin stuff's done by Paul Hammond and Tommy Zampanelli. In the middle of the show, they sit down on stools and chairs, and they do California and Ramble On and that stuff. And it's neat. In fact, because I was helping tech for Paul, he had 3 different mandolins with 3 different tunings.
All right.
I mean, it is these guys, they take it to the next level.
That's wonderful. Seriously. And it is seriously like classical music.
Absolutely. And,
They're
and
absolutely treating it like it were.
Respect, with
Yes.
respect. And because like when I was a kid, Zeppelin was like, this is really cool music. But now looking back on it, there have been a few bands that were super particular about what they did, starting with the Beatles and the Beach Boys, Queen, Led Zeppelin. There were just a few bands that really put so much into it. Deep Purple,
Yeah.
bands and as a result of their effort, they're a standard set. And
Mhm.
uh we've all seen tribute bands. And usually what you do is you get a tribute band, you got a singer that looks kind of like the guy from Cleveland's Clearwater Revival, and then a bunch of plumbers behind him, wearing wigs
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that.
You get
Um,
closer and you realize the guy's 70 years old.
yeah, yeah.
And he's
Like
trying to look
Elvis
like Paul
impersonators.
McCartney.
Oh, Elvis impersonators. When I was in Vegas, I mean, you can't turn around without bumping into a fat Elvis.
Mhm.
And all the impersonators are older than Elvis was when he died. I mean, it's the whole
All right,
impersonator
Greg,
thing.
show us your old guitar that you're working on.
Oh, yeah, that was a very sudden
That suck. My
transition.
segues are absolutely on point.
Legendary. So this week's guitar, we're going to do a guitar every week.
Yeah, yeah.
This week's guitar is a 1930 Martin 00018. And this belongs to my friend Tim. And when he brought it to me, it was not playable. It had loose braces.
Uh-huh.
Bridge was coming off. The neck needed to be reset. Now, these guitars were made with this is mahogany and Adirondack spruce and Brazilian rosewood. And in the old days, and with some companies still today, the guitars were made with hide glue. Hide glue is essentially boiled animal product, and the gelatin that comes up to the surface dries. They grind it into granules, and then you boil that in water, and it makes this amazingly strong glue. And then when it dries, it returns to crystalline form. Well, when you glue stuff together with hide glue, as long as it's kept in a consistent humidity and temperature range, it's always glue. But if a guitar gets too cold for a great length of time or too hot for a great length of time, the glue will no longer be glue.
Mhm.
And just about every older Martin guitar needs a neck reset. The neck is fit down in like it's pressed down in like that. And as time goes by, the strings act as a fulcrum and they cause the neck to go up like this. And the string action gets very, very high. And the neck needs to be reset. So what we do is we take out a couple frets, and we've all got modified espresso machines, and we use the steam, run it through a hose into a basketball needle, and we'll run steam down in there. And what the steam does is softens the hide glue.
Wow.
And then we gently remove the neck, clean it all up, and then put in fresh hide glue and clamp it back in. It's called a neck reset. And so I did a neck reset on this, and I got it almost perfect. I almost didn't need to replace the saddle. So there it works, but a little tiny bit of buzz. So I'm gonna have to put a slightly taller saddle on. But this is a 1930 Martin. And it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And
Great Depression.
yeah. I mean, think of all the crap that was going on in 1930 when this guitar was built.
Right.
And we were talking about respect earlier with the music. What I try to do is I try to respect the instrument. I don't want to hot rod it. I don't want to use modern glue. I use hide glue.
Mhm.
I try to do all my stuff old school, the way the masters did it. I just try to follow their lead. So
Mhm.
when I'm restoring an old Martin, I use Martin techniques. When I'm restoring an old Gibson, I use Gibson techniques. And then there's Gretsch guitars. just about everything was different on Gretsch guitars. Their neck joints are totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Their binding was basically drum covering, cut into strips. So it's not unusual for old Gretches to come apart. In fact, I'm going to show you one I'm about to start on.
All right.
You entertain everybody, Rod, while I crack a case. Sing.
Fly me to the moon. Let me dance among the stars. This is Greg's shop, everybody.
This is
Good stuff does
amazing.
not come cheap.
All right.
Cheap stuff is not good.
Now, what we have here is a Gretsch Rancher from the 1950s. And this is the back. Look at the friggin' archtop burl maple, just beautiful. And you can see like real thick binding. This guitar's got a story though. Somebody refinished it at some point, stripped the sunburst finish off, and you can see how the binding is coming apart. Binding is basically protective plastic around the edges. And this stuff on Gretches especially shrinks. And so when it shrinks, it pulls away and you can see it's just coming apart. I could probably knock that off if I pushed on it. But the interesting thing about this guitar is the top is not flat. It actually curves down. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is friggin' cool. That top is not flat at all like most acoustics. And it just goes like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the triangular sound hole.
So this is going to be one for the coming week.
Yeah, it's going to be restored. And I'm going to photograph everything. I'm going to reshoot the sunburst on the face so that it matches the sides and back.
Okay.
On a lot of these guitars, the original pickguard, this stuff is made out of nitrate and it gases off. And when it gases off, it basically oxidizes and puts out these noxious gases, which just rot away any plating. It's like old films. It's the same material that original celluloid, nitrocelluloid films were made out of, and they've transferred as much as they can, and they're still doing it every day, I'm sure, of all the old silent films and everything, and digitizing it because the nitrate becomes unstable.
Yeah.
And you open up an old film can, the oxygen hits it, boom, it catches fire and it blows up. Nitroglycerin. I mean, nitro, anything with nitrogen in it, when you combine it with oxygen, all of a sudden you got bad things happening. So a lot of the nitrate parts on old guitars slowly gas off and cause all kinds of damage. And I'm willing to bet what happened was the pickguard gassed off, wasted the finish, and so somebody just stripped it. But the headstock is gorgeous. And you can see all the binding has shrunk. So
that's legit. That's for real, because the newer versions of this have the newer, I say newer artwork logo.
Yeah.
It's 1960s.
Yeah, this is gorgeous.
50s, yes.
This is all cut by hand, man.
Yeah, right.
Probably by old ladies, you know.
Yeah.
And you can see how the binding shrunk here. You know, it's doesn't quite make it anymore. And so what I'm going to do is, because the binding is so bad on the sides of the neck, I'm just going to replace it with new parts. But this sort of stuff, what we do is we peel it and glue it back in and then just patch in. In this case, I'm going to patch in. All this stuff is going to get peeled. It's going to get re-glued, and then there will be a patch down here, and you'll just barely see it. There's no way to make it go away. But again, it's not 100% original guitar, but just a really, really cool guitar. So every week we'll show one that's almost done and one that's about to start. And
come back to it. We'll come back to
really
it.
Cares. Yeah, anybody who really cares will be able to go back and forth and see them as they happen. The unfortunate thing about my job with the restorations is it's not a quick process. Some of these guitars can take 2 years, 3 years. I have a friend who restores vintage automobiles. It's not unusual for him to have a car for up to 10 years because he's trying to locate just the right parts and do just the right process to fix it and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I don't advocate 10-year restorations, but when something like this, and the other problem is that there's not a lot of guys doing this. So the guys that there are, I refuse way more work than I accept, which is a blessing and a curse, because I really want to make everybody happy. But if I don't have time to work on a guitar, I can't take it on.
Mhm.
And it's not fair to the guitar
And the
clients that I
person,
already
yes,
have when I take
absolutely.
on yet another one and push it ahead of them.
Yep.
That being said, when I do take on a guitar, man, I throw hard at it. And I am so blessed that A, God gave me the skills to do this, and B, he gave me the great customers that I get to work with. Very rarely have I had a problem customer, though. When you get a bad one, you really get a bad one. Oh, it's not tuned. But anyway, really smoking cool guitar, very rare,
Yeah.
weighs a ton. And next time you're up here, Gels, we'll dig it out and you can fool around.
Maybe
with it.
next week. Maybe next week.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
We'll
All
talk.
right. All right. Uncle Greg, to our audience, we need a song.
Yeah, we need a closing song. We need an opening song that we
need a
use a closing song right after we say, be good to each other.
Be good to each other.
Be good to each other.
Don't
God
be
bless
a jerk.
y'all.
Don't
Yeah.
slap people.
Yeah.
Don't
Real
do
quick.
that.
Will Smith made a huge error.
Yes.
I don't think he's a bad person, but he did
Sure.
a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because
and he knows it.
he said violence is the answer.
Yep.
Words don't hurt. Words don't cause bruises. Words can cause mental damage, certainly, and they can be vicious. But what Chris Rock did, it was on the border. I mean, he wasn't making fun of her medical condition. He was talking about her appearance. And whoever wrote the joke, I'm sure feels very bad. But when Will
seemed
laughed,
improv.
yeah, I'm not so sure that wasn't. There had to be some script in that, because it's just weird.
Yeah.
There's only one camera angle. You notice that?
Yeah.
But in my opinion, if that was a genuine act, what Will did was he showed that it's okay to disrespect somebody physically, and that's not right. That's not right at all.
So the lesson learned that we will always remind you is be good to each other. Be good to each other. We will see you next week, the week after, and the week after that. See ya.
God willing.
Yes. At the bench. See ya.